Hi everyone, welcome to my studio. This time I just want to go over how I varnish a painting. This is one of my recent oil paintings. It's dry to the touch, lots of time to cure, and I'm using Gamvar picture varnish, and this is the satin, and it has some particles in it, so when it dries it's not as glossy. You really need to mix this stuff up well. And when I'm using this stuff, I really like to just have a small tray that I've made out of aluminum foil that fits the size of my brush. Put that there, and what I do is I'll put a little bit of varnish in there after I've mixed it up. Not a lot, because you won't be using a lot. And I do want to make sure that the painting is clean. So what I do is I generally take another dry brush and just ensure that it's dust-free, lint-free, particle-free. Alright, this is a 16 by 16 canvas, and so it won't take very long to do because the coat is really thin. So we'll dip our brush in, just get enough on there, not a lot. And I like using the tray with the satin varnish because otherwise in the bottle it'll settle and you don't have a chance to keep mixing it. And so my technique isn't so much going back and forth, it's scrubbing it in. So what I'll do is I'll have my brush more of an angle and I'll really get it into the weave, and I find this creates a better finish with the Gamvar picture varnish, because sometimes you can have an instance where it will unnecessarily not really stick too well, or it might slightly beat up, and I find scrubbing it in is really the best way to do it. A little goes a long way. No need to put it on thick. The thicker the coat, the longer it takes to dry in between. It's not something you want as a thick coat. Thin coats always go thin. Thinner is better with varnish. Alright, and you can check with the glare of the lights that you're using. You can tilt it back and forth and you can see to make sure that you have everything coated in varnish. And then what I do is I go back and forth horizontally just to make sure I even things out, and then I go back vertically. And what I like to do at this point, especially now that everything's so even, instead of just leaving it and letting it dry on its own, I've had instances where it'll kind of just it'll slightly separate from certain areas, so there isn't such an even finish. So what I've been doing lately is I just take a hairdryer and I have it on a high setting, and I'll just go over it, for like 10-15 seconds, not a lot, just enough to start burning off the solvents. Then I'll brush it again, brush it again. So let's go ahead with the hairdryer. Now that that's done, I'll go over it again. You can feel it's slightly tacky, or tackier. Now I'm using the brush that I had before, but I didn't add any more varnish to it. What I'm doing is I'm just going over it slightly to ensure it's still even. What I'm finding here is with the solvent evaporating faster, it doesn't have a chance to move away from the oil paint underneath, and that way you'll get a much more consistent finish. So I'll do it again. And again with the brush, same brush, no more varnish. Just going over it one more time until I feel like it's tacky enough that it won't start separating at all from the oil painting underneath. You get a much more consistent finish with this way, I find. Now I'm not going to dry it completely with the hairdryer. I'm going to let it naturally evaporate for the final drying. But in between, I like to use the hairdryer to make sure I get that consistent finish. So one more time. And then one more brush. And this now will ensure that I have a very consistent varnish finish. This is the very first coat. I usually put 2 coats on, and that's it. Bonus tip, there's no reason to actually wash the varnish out of this brush because it gets reactivated with Gamsol anyway. So I just take a Ziploc bag, put it inside, and it keeps it relatively moist. When you bring it out, you probably will have to add a little bit of Gamsol to get it softer again. But this way you don't have to clean it, you don't have to waste solvent, and it's ready for you next time you go. I hope this helps some of you out there. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. Hit that like button, subscribe, and if you want, hit that bell. Cheers, everyone.